Several weeks ago, I posted a video about speed work, and in there I make the comment that most people don't really want to be faster. What you want to do is hold a faster pace for longer. So this is continue talking about it's not about being faster. You're fast enough, it's a faster pace for longer. The example that we used is we talked about the aerobic base and lactate threshold. So watch those videos if you haven't. Is if your half time is 2:08, which is 9:46, your goal time 1:59, 9:05. You have to first have this really big aerobic base. But then you got to work on your body's ability to process lactic acid. It's really the hydrogen ions because you've got to get that underneath your goal time. You're not going to be able to hit that. So let's say you've done a lot of work with lactate threshold and you've estimated that now instead of 9:20, you're down to 8:45. So now I am good to go. I can run that 9:06. Probably not, because remember, this is the pace you can hold for about an hour. You're going to be out there for a couple hours. You need more. And chances are you were doing more to get it there because you probably couldn't get your lactate threshold down to 8:45 without working on some other things, most specifically your aerobic power, also known as VO2 max. So what the hell is aerobic power, VO2 max? Quite simply, it's your body's ability to consume oxygen. So when you get those numbers that you might see from Garmin of 48 or 52, they're talking about the milliliters. I think it's milliliters. It's how much oxygen you're able to consume. Generally speaking, the higher that number, the faster you can go for a longer period of time. Running economy counts, I talked about that in that first video, those other things, but generally speaking, higher is better. And working to improve your aerobic power is going to be a key thing that's going to help you hold that faster pace for longer, because as I said, you're probably already fast enough, you just can't do that for a long time. So how do you work on your VO2 max? Well, if you're in marathon training, you probably only need to do VO2 max work maybe 6 to 8 times during all of marathon training. That's because the marathon doesn't really require a whole lot of that. Some is good, which is why it's in there. And it's in there for other reasons than just working on your VO2 max. But it's not a lot for a marathon. It's a lot more for a half marathon. Half marathon, you're probably not going to be doing VO2 max work every week, but you're probably going to be doing it most weeks. It's a much shorter distance, you're going faster. The aerobic power, that ability to consume the oxygen and get it to the muscles, is just more important in a half marathon. Way more important in a 10K, which is why the mix of the workouts you do varies with the distance that you're training for. So your VO2 max is probably right around your 3K pace. You're looking at a given workout to accumulate about 11 to 12 minutes in totality at VO2 max, and I will get to that in a minute, because it sounds like, oh, I run a lot longer than that. Nah, you probably don't. And you're typically doing it with interval running. You're doing it in short bursts with 50% recovery. What I mean by that is that you will jog for about 50% of the distance that you just ran, or you might jog for 50% of the time that you just ran, but that is typical to have a 50% ratio to that. Now, I made the comment that you wanted to have the time in total. So your intervals are usually going to be no shorter than about 3 minutes. Sometimes they are, but typically 3 to 5 minutes, very rarely over 5 minutes, because it's actually a pretty hard pace to hold for much longer than 5 minutes. It takes about 1.5 to 2 minutes to hit your VO2 max. So in other words, when you very first start running, your heart rate is down. It's not elevated yet, which is part of what is generating that VO2 max. And it's going to take you 1.5 to 2 minutes of running to hit that. Hence why you do 3 to 5 minutes. That means if you're doing a 3-minute interval during the first 1.5 to 2 minutes, you might not even be there yet. That's why I said you want 11 to 12 minutes in total. But what will happen is with each interval that you do, because your heart rate is going to go down not quite as much every one with that 50% recovery, you'll get more and more of that time spent at VO2 max. So that first interval is maybe it takes you 2 minutes to get there. Maybe the next time it's going to take you 1 minute and 50 seconds. Maybe the next time it's going to take you 1.5 minutes. Maybe it gets down to a minute. You'll get there faster and faster. You don't really need to figure that all out. I usually figure that if I take the total amount of faster running time is somewhere between 15 and 25 minutes, you're probably going to be in that 11 to 12 minute range. So what do I mean by 15 to 25 minutes? If you were, let's make the math really easy. If you're running intervals that are 5 minutes long, that means I'm either going to have you doing 3 of those or maybe 5 of those, because that would be 15 to 25 minutes. You know, how many, again, it depends upon a whole variety of factors. Like the lactate system, your VO2 max actually adapts fairly quickly. You can get some changes in fairly short order. You'll get some good changes with that by doing that consistently. It doesn't need to be about more than about 5 to 8% of your weekly mileage. So the lower your mileage, the less of that you want to do. That might be one reason it's 15 minutes versus 25, because you don't want to upset things by doing too much of stuff in relation to the other work that you might be doing. And generally speaking, once a week is enough. If you're training for a 5K, you might have some weeks where you're doing it twice in there, but actually chances are the second one is going to be more speed work than it is work at VO2 max. But certainly with half marathon training and marathon training, it would be very unusual to do that more than once a week. And as I said earlier, in marathon, it's maybe 6 to 8 times over 18 weeks. And in a half marathon, it's going to be most weeks, not always. So kind of recapping, faster is important. You should be doing some faster running, as I said in that first video a few weeks ago. You got to have that big aerobic base. You have to work on your lactate system. You want to have some aerobic power, and you put all those things together. They are the key elements that'll help you not necessarily be faster, but run a fast pace for longer, which is what I think most people really want to do.